All right, everyone. Welcome to the Dellve Brand Exchange podcast. My guest today is Derya Tanghe, and he's the co-founder of companies such as Nxtlvl Academy, Nxtlvl Farms, Nxtlvl Water, and also the FTW Foundation. Derya focuses on projects that have a positive social impact and environmental impact. And I'm so glad to have you on today. It's an honor to have you on the show.
It's an honor to be here, Yohji.
I want to focus today on just one company to keep it simple. Nxtlvl Farms, or as maybe our other viewers know it as Future Fresh, because it is already available in most supermarkets that I know. For everyone who doesn't know, Future Fresh is a vertical farming place, or Daria, you correct me later on if you have better words for that, farm, which basically has like a post-organic, pesticide-free and hydroponically grown. Okay, too many words being thrown at me today. So basically the best salad, the best herbs, the best basil I've ever put in my pasta since I live in Southeast Asia. So thank you for providing me with all of these. And yeah, I want to jump into it right away and just get your story from Future Fresh. If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Thanks, Yohji. So, Future Fresh, we're a modern farm practicing vertical farming right now. So using the power of advanced technology to grow crops more efficiently in a controlled environment, indoors, anywhere, in any location. So what we're looking to do in the Philippines is build resilience when it comes into agriculture, introducing new products, focusing on local productive farming that's more efficient rather than focusing on imported goods. So for us, can maybe make it simply like there's three factors that separate Future Fresh and what we really see. I would say is the quality as one. So we use technology and innovation, indoor vertical farms, to provide the best product possible for customers. It stays fresher for longer. You brought it up that there's no pesticides used, no agrochemicals, no kind of off-run of fertilizers. That really leads to the quality and especially all the controls that we can do for every single plant, manipulate the growing of every plant to make sure that it's essentially in the best possible environment for it to thrive. So second would be on reliability. So we have 365 days of production, which you won't get in traditional farms. So 365 days supply, safe food production as well. Food safety is really important. And since we control every aspect from the seed to store or from a seed to your home, it leads to that trustworthiness that you're getting something consistent.
Yeah, so even like all your stuff is working like in the full hazmat suits, right? So definitely.
It's a very different way to farm. Essentially, you want to almost limit the amount of human interaction with the plants because the environment is set to be uninterrupted, essentially, right? That's when they grow their best.
That's awesome.
Third point would be accessibility. So not only daily, but our channel mix. Like we want it to be easy to find and buy Future Fresh. So you find us as an e-grocer or e-delivery store for the website. We have various partner sellers. We sell from supermarkets. We sell direct to restaurants. So we want to also make it easy to find us, easy to locate us.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I introduced you earlier as social impact and environmental impact kind of person. And I think that just, strikes all points. I'm just so interested because this project is really not just another tech startup or anything. It really, really helps people. And like the vision for it, it's so huge that I think it can help a lot of people in the future, especially like in Southeast Asia. People get over the obstacle, I guess, of like healthy living because it's not a topic that's being discussed in Southeast Asian families most of the times. But like, how did it all start? Like, where did the idea come from of starting a vertical farming startup in Southeast Asia?
I guess like starting from the Philippines came naturally as a part of this greater desire that me and my co-founders share of just providing what we see as essential goods and services in a better way, in a way that's built for the future and that's sustainable. Mm-hmm. I would think that when we first started talking about what kind of industry, like what could agriculture benefit from, it really came from, I guess, personal concerns. So I did my high school here in the Philippines. I returned a little over 10 years after, and I realized that the vegetable quality, the fresh produce, like variety, what was there was just largely unchanged, which shocks me. I mean, 10 years, I think, in this day and age, products change dramatically, right? Like shoes, sneakers, sometimes like there's no comparison almost. So, but
Right.
the vegetables were largely untouched. And that caused me to want to ask people more how they felt about that
So the lack
also.
of innovation in the
And
industry.
yeah, big part of that. And there was a desire. People were kind of frustrated when they bought fresh produce, when it came just to like money for value, what you get, the quality, the variety, especially when they travel overseas and want to come back and kind of eat what they experienced there or to cook. So, talking with chefs as well, they shared similar problems, but that also really relates to running their business. And so we thought, okay,
Of course.
someone has to do this better, can do this better. So we looked overseas what was working and then kind of blew our minds away with looking at the rounds of funding, the push, the drive to, the future of indoor vertical farming, starting really from there outward.
Mm,
And we have to prepare for a future without as much water resources, with fewer and fewer arable land availability. Like we've already shrunken, I think, arable land by a third in the last 40 years, which is really terrifying.
yeah,
And then you have your ever growing population. So food reliability and security are massive.
that's true.
And we can't just go about doing it the way we are. It might feel safe right now, but that's not going to be the case down the road. So we took a long-term bet here. Basically came as a first mover and yeah, just looking to be here continuously because people need to eat and people need
Wow.
to eat well.
Yeah, that's true. Having the long-term view on that is definitely very visionary, and I respect you for being a small part in tackling that problem. I wish my business would help more of the planet, but maybe providing brand strategy to companies to get more exposed will do a tiny bit part of what you're doing in your footsteps. I want to move the discussion a little bit to the word funding that you mentioned earlier. And that's one of the stages, especially when we work with early stage startups, like they are struggling so much of getting to a point where you can actually change the world in a situation that you are right now or you are at the journey on. So in during the funding stage, like what was the most challenging step? Like could you maybe tell us and like our audience a little bit about that part? Like how do you get out of the starting hole and, get the funds you need to kick things off?
So hard. So
Yeah.
what's funny was back in New York, I did this as a job. I was fundraising for private equity firms from China, really big money. And then
Okay.
when you do it yourself for your own company, you think you're prepared. You're not prepared. There's yeah, there's so much thrown at you in different angles and different ways. And you just have to be cautious about it. I think what is good is that some of the co-founders, like we come with a financial background in mind. So when we started the company too, it wasn't necessarily about, just growing top line and not caring about the rest. This is a business that requires upfront investment
Yeah,
for equipment, for the
of
farm
course.
itself. So unit contribution costs, I mean, without getting to the nitty gritty of it, it's like, how do you be profitable? Thinking with that mindset from the
Hmm.
first day. But yeah, challenging step. I think after getting that first funding round, we basically rose money funding from friends or friends of friends
Okay.
to create the first system.
Okay.
And we learned a lot. We had to redo the system a number of times to get it to produce something
Of
edible
course.
and that works in the Philippines. And then it came really about like, how do you keep money in control? You can raise that amount of money, but you have to also be sure to keep that in control. It's very easy to overspend. It really is, especially when you have, a capex related business like ours, and you have such a continuous flow of of goods that's perishable that
Yes.
goes in, goes out. Our goal is really to eliminate food waste. So I would just say in terms of like, I guess challenging throughout that phase is just not only are you really managing the business, but you always gotta think ahead of how much more funding you're gonna need, how are you gonna get out of that. It really is a full-time job in itself.
Yeah, I mean, getting friends, family, and friends of friends, that sounds very familiar. Yeah, that's the startup story of everyone's life, I guess, for the early stages.
Right.
Can I,
from
Mm.
tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions. It's like,
Yeah, especially in the beginning, if you start in Vietnam Dong for millions. We're gonna talk about branding later on again, but I'm so curious. Like at the beginning, when you were still pitching to friends and family and friends of friends, like what did you pitch with? Did you have a website? Did you have a pitch deck? Could you maybe walk me through a little bit to share some experiences?
yeah, we had a couple slides. I don't think it was more than a handful of slides.
Okay.
That basically envisioned this idea of bringing modern farming to the Philippines being a completely vertically integrated business, listing out the problems that I kind of mentioned at the start and more that's happening globally and that we also see in the Philippines. And with that, we went out. And once we got that funding, those communications, and people were interested because they saw the opportunity, they also see the opportunity out west. So, and they're Filipino, they're from the Philippines, so they clearly see it. And then when we got the funding, it's kind of like, okay, how are we going to do this? We're not farmers to begin with, actually, right? We all come
Right.
from different backgrounds, but not agriculture. So we need to talk to some people and find some people who know more about this than we do. And
Yeah.
then bring our own expertise and our own strategy and the drive and passion to making it a reality. So we went overseas. We saw, different equipment, what was happening out there. We saw what the Philippines could use and how to do it. And, it's a different animal. We don't really need to do full automation of robotics here.
Mhm.
There's actually, you can localize it in a different way. So from that, we started with the first, and then we continued working with international advisors, found really good agronomists and chemists and otherwise to be able to focus on the major inputs first,
Okay.
to make sure that we could grow in a really good way. And now, I mean, it's been so many renditions afterwards, but
Mhm.
yeah, after really getting that idea of we have the funds, how are we going to do this? We needed to talk to some experts.
But after the initial round of funding, were you able already to contract international advisors, or was that still local or like from the region, I guess?
Within the network,
Okay.
regionally as well as overseas, we found a piece of land first that was going to be our outdoor farm. At the time, it was really, really large, way larger than what was needed out in Parañaque. But the person with the land was interested, so that was kind of the first step. Then putting the equipment there, figuring out
Okay.
how to grow, and that came first. That came before the brand and everything else. It was really like, can we create an edible product? That was the first reason people put in
Wow.
money to see like, okay, can you actually grow indoors? Like, is this actually viable before going to the next step?
So you had an entire facility with somewhat working equipment and zero investment into your brand or your pitch deck at this point.
Yeah, and we decided to start with arugula, which is not your general run of the mill, like, I'm a beginner hydroponic farmer, I'm going to do arugula. But that's what a lot of people wanted. So we're like, let's get it right. And we were doing just a kilogram a month from like our system, which is now obviously
Oh,
like
wow.
more than 300 times that. Yeah, I think that taught us a lot too, even just starting on a difficult path and then persevering.
Everyone works on their own kind of pace, right? And then focusing on the product, focusing on the technology, focusing on the people. All of that is much more important than trying to have an awesome brand that can't deliver afterwards. So beginning wise, you did everything right. Just for the funding stage, one last question. If you really focus it on that section of your business journey, would you have done anything differently?
For the funding specifically,
Yes.
yes, go out to more people.
Go out to more
Um,
people.
Almost like go through your entire network, ask friends or friends, tell everybody what you're looking to do.
Yeah.
Don't, in a way, keep it secret because I think it could have expedited things, could have grown the network quicker, I'd say. Yeah, that's something that would be also, I think, a recommendation. Kind of, don't be
Oh,
shy that
yes.
you're going out for funding.
Yeah. Yeah. I met so many people in my life telling me like, I have this awesome business idea, but I can't tell you anything about it. It was like, bro, even if you tell me about it, like ideas are all shit. Like execution is king. You can tell everyone. No one's gonna steal ideas like this and try to run with it. So yeah, for everyone who's listening, I 100% agree with it. Just go out, like drink as much wine and beer as you can every night to stay as energetic as possible, or coffee. and go to every single co-working event of every single co-working place in the city that you're living for a start, and at 3 a.m. digital events in the States. Let's move the conversation a little bit off from the funding part. And I want to briefly discuss alignment and vision, because that's something that we just preach to every single person that we work with, or all of our clients as well. Because I think, especially in a company like yours that really makes a change, really has an impact, in what way or another, like you have to have some core beliefs, right? You can always make up fancy words and visuals and logos and create nice photos. But I think for a project like this, there is this like shared belief of, A, making the world a better place, B, saving the world from drowning into the ocean, or C, providing people with just literally better vegetables and fruits in the future. So, like, do you have these words or these terms written down internally? Do you have some kind of strategic document that you share with your employees? Because I'm sure among the co-founders, you guys, are pretty aligned of what you're trying to do. I'm just interested, like, how do you keep like your vision and your communication so aligned throughout this journey?
I think this is something obvious that takes time to really implement. I think for ourselves too, I'll say like we could always do better at doing this and communicating. And in a way, the brand of the company has changed from where it first was. But what I always keep in mind, if we talk about values, right? Everybody who's a part of Future Fresh kind of knows three things. You have to modernize farming and food production for survivability and for the future to be as good as it is now, or, on par with what it is now. We have to make lives easier. So buying produce and working with vegetables here is not really a fun experience. So that kind of led to how, like, our produce is like fresher for longer, right? It lasts weeks. So how can we make lives easier, not just from the product standpoint, but the ordering standpoint, making it accessible? That's another kind of key value that everybody on the team knows. And the other one is to kind of like keep pushing boundaries, right? Keep innovating from the way that we sell, what we sell, what's lacking in the market, like continue to find ideas and bring them forward, because, we don't want to be a stale company. We're starting in hydroponic indoor farming. That's probably not where we're going to end up. That could change and go through multiple renditions.
Yeah.
But the way is always like, how can we keep innovating and realize that we're not doing as good as we can? Like there's always something bad. We can do something better. Those are kind of like, I would say, like the values and the work.
Do you guys pass that around? Do you have a strategic document, or is it more like, you have weekly or monthly or quarterly meetings where you get everyone together and, talk really, like get the vision of the founders back into the heads, like really reminding everyone why we're doing this and why we're all waking up in the morning?
Yeah, there's quarterly kind of strategy meetings and otherwise, but I mean, to that good point, that's a really good point. Like I think that has to happen more frequently. We're still a relatively small team, but I think especially as you grow, there has to be something more defined that's passed around. So that actually has not been yet put into an actual like book for everybody to read or kind of a manual. It's just like, what you see, you hear about it.
Okay, good.
So yeah, I think definitely like with size, that has to happen.
Right. Yeah. I mean, with a small team, it's always still easier to go around it's usually table to table, but maybe vertical farm to vertical farm and talk to the people on a more personal note, right? So I think you and I also met one of your co-founders. Everything that comes from your mouth makes totally sense to me. So if I would be one of the farm workers, I'll be definitely motivated to improve my country's food and vision and environmental status. I just love how, especially all the co-founders, everyone who's vocal about the brand is just so aligned in what you guys trying to do. Usually when co-founders don't kind of get along or have mixed messages, the entire project fails anyway. So no wonder you guys are successful and doing well. I'm visiting your website every other week to buy some salads. I see your packaging. I see your logos. I do have a nice bag from you guys as well that my wife is using for groceries. When did you first time realize that great branding can also contribute to startup success? Or like, When was the first time that you saw investing in branding will actually contribute to investment into your company?
That's a good question. What comes to mind first is people didn't know how to say our name, and it was too long. So our kind of corporate name on our first name was Next Level Farms.
Yeah.
And when you look at that as a brand facing consumer, it doesn't carry kind of the weight or impact that we want. And that was one of the first steps that took us to work with someone from the outside and externally, as well as dive into ourselves to figure out what kind of brand, what are we, what are our brand elements like, what's our kind of brand circle? What are we trying to do for people? What we need a better name
Hmm.
that works.
Yeah.
That was the first time that we really delved into it. And I think cohesively, like put everything that we do together to future fresh. So I would say that was a very eye opening and
Who came up
obvious.
with that name? Yeah, it's a great story.
Well, we were looking at a couple ones like we wanted, I think, Future Farms, and there was someone else that someone had registered for, and it would pay a lot of money to get the domain and everything. Yeah, we worked with one agency, came up with a lot of names, but Future Fresh was one of the first ones that we thought of.
Okay.
Then we got very elaborate. We simplified it. In the end, that was kind of what stuck the most in terms of two things we are really doing, like preparing for the future, bringing you products from the future. Like we have a Mizuno now that astronauts eat. I think that that's pretty futuristic. I had that fresh element because especially as it is for the Philippines and Southeast Asia, the amount of food waste is so sad on delivery and the amount of hands that touches and everything else. Like, I don't think people really understood what fresh can be. And the products last so long. So it all kind of embedded. So many elements came together to embed like, okay, at Future Fresh is the one.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it definitely tackles two out of the three kind of like main visions out of what you explained earlier. And, if you maybe have food waste and saving the world in the name, that would be like complete bingo. But I think Future First is pretty perfect. And it's super easy to say. It starts with the same letter. I have definitely never occurred anyone's where it's like, this vertical farming thing. So no, everyone Future Fresh sticks. Future Fresh is awesome. I think you guys did an amazing job of, like sticking to that name, coming up with that name in the first place. Companies that, get lost with Next Level Farm, especially if you remove all the vowels in between.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did the first logo look a lot different than what we're seeing right now on the website?
Yeah, the first logo was actually something that ran in my mind before, and it was quite elaborate, still used on that corporate level, but it was basically like unlocking the Earth's key. So I had the tree of life, like Yggdrasil over there, very elaborate with a key, kind of
Oh, wow.
unlocking potential there. So that was like the first logo. Now that's just overly complex for customers. It's like looking at a painting or something. There's so much that could come out of that, or like it could be completely irrelevant to vertical farming. So I think if you look closely at our logo, you'll realize that it's a plant growing with an LED embedded into it because we're focused on
Yeah.
grow lights. So it's a leaf with an LED. Yeah, much more direct.
Many of the people that I talk to as well, it's just like, I don't know where it came from, but it's just this universal misunderstanding of what a logo is, right? It's just like everyone thinks the logo needs to communicate something and it just doesn't. Like mostly you're just good of choosing a font that's somewhat legible and just run with it. Can have a small icon like you guys. It's absolutely no problem. That looks like a leaf. First impression, absolute perfect. But yeah, your first story is definitely one for the books with a tree of life and having a key in there. I mean, looking back at your brand building process, would you have done anything differently? Do you think it would have actually brought you more money, or would you have connected to more professional VC firms if you would have had maybe, let's just say, the outer visual part of your brand a little bit more figured out? And I'm not saying it's a better or worse way. I'm really just asking how you felt during the journey.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is coming to light now as well.
Hmm.
So would branding specifically matter for the investors or potential investors in fundraising? I think not. But branding is going to drive your business and accelerate and get sales, get customers. And that is obviously what leads back to investments
Yeah.
and growth. And I think, more and more now, I see that because we're also, we're a farm. Sure, we do things a lot differently. We have different products. We're looking to expand the products. But in the end, a lot of people view produce like a commodity or a perishable good that you buy. So, and in the end, there's going to be others who grow it. So what really makes you stand out from others, aside from just your product, it's your brand, it's the branding. And now what I really would love for Future Fresh to now turn more sort of into is to be something aspirational,
Mm.
to, it's a lifestyle. We used to focus so much on product pushing on the brand, and to an extent we still do. And in the end, people don't really understand the technicals. They want to see, they want to feel it. They want ways that they can actually like be there with you growing or be there eating the produce and understanding how eating better is going to help you live better. All that compiles more into the bread. So now it's really a time for us to be more aspirational. And, we learned a lot. It probably took us a long time, but, focus on technicals and just focus on the product would be something that I would change.
There was again textbook perfect. I want everyone to listen to this as well, because I think it's so important to know what stage you're in and to understand like when to invest into something. Like approaching, advisors, agencies, consultants too early or too late is the exact same thing. Like as Derya, like you just said it, I think having a fully designed, fully thought through brand with a bunch of like hype words inside will have not made any difference. I completely agree with you, because VC firms, they want to see, do you have your shit together? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know how to make money? And do you have some kind of access to like actually fulfill your technology or service or product, whatever you're doing, right? But then the next level, especially if you want 2 stages up in your funding round, is when you really, really, really need to have your communication aligned and all the things that the founders have discussed so far to really communicate it as clearly as possible. Because it is pretty simple what you guys are doing, right? Planet, product, and health. So if you just run with those 3 words, like you can literally put that on your website, the 3 words with a nice picture of your farm in the background, and just try to run with it for a year and see where the journey takes you. But in the beginning, having those 3 words up there and trying to convince someone to put $1 million into some random farm would have probably just had the opposite effect, because they want to see numbers and people want to see the aspirational side of it, and they want to see how they can actually help you contribute to the problems with our planet and the problems with the products and etc., right? So that was really awesome that you said that. I want everyone to understand it and don't call us with an idea and think we can just solve magic and collect millions of dollars with a few new visuals. So that's not how it works. You have this white techie kind of brand feel, right? That you really embraced until now, and that really fits to your farming experience and your technology that you've built in house, I've heard, right? So props to that. When we talk about branding itself, would you give anyone like advice of like really like adding something from what you said earlier? Like, would you have done anything differently in that phase? And could you maybe, give some nice tips like you did in the earlier sections of our podcast?
Yeah, well, what you said right there was money, right? Planet, product, health. How to simplify what you're trying to do in maybe 3 words, and then breaking up the branding elements from there, right? Like, how does your business solve that? How are you solving customers' problems? I mean, for this, I'd say, a good advice is just you always have to think about it from the customer's side.
Oh,
You're going to
yes.
overcomplicate it yourself when you get into it, but in the end, it might not really be at all what customers and what people are looking for. So you have to have that people approach first with the brand. So simplification, not overcomplication, I think is a
That's
major
awesome.
one there.
Yeah.
I think also you need keywords that you're not going to keep changing. At least give it time to breathe for some word like that, for lack of a better word. But like, let people sit on it and see if it catches on and
Hmm.
becomes more of an entity with your brand. So those are some maybe tips or otherwise, things that we've learned going through the process, that you can't just always be changing things quite rapidly because you're just going to confuse customers even more. They're going to lose a connection to what you're trying to actually do or the point you're trying to get across. Let it sit.
That's awesome. Simplification. The only word that I would like to add at the end would be consistency. If you
Mm.
can be simple and then stick to that, I mean, it's just the same thing that you said, but just stick to it and keep it simple. You'll have a good journey, I think, as long as your product or your service is somewhat, if you have some product market fit in any way. Do you have anything else that you would like to give young entrepreneurs, maybe someone who was in your shoes 5, 6, 7 years ago? Do you have any words for the
Mm.
audience out there that you would like to share?
It's not going to be easy. It's going to be fulfilling. No one ever told me that. And then maybe
Okay.
two other important aspects. HR is really vital. I mean, people, any business is a people business. So much of it is understanding your team. So much of it is hiring right and creating values across your members to carry that culture as a young entrepreneur. Those first 10 employees and outwards, they're gonna build that culture moving forward. Second would be your accounting. I would say past angel round, going to seed round or otherwise, you need a very good one. It's really important, and things can fall through the cracks very easily and lead to problems that, didn't need to be there in the first place. So HR and accounting.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Every business is a people business. Couldn't be more true. Thank you so much. The last thing I would like you to give a small room to maybe tell us and tell everyone who's listening what we can expect from Future Fresh in the future.
Thanks, Yoji. Yeah. So, well, find us at futurefresh.ph. We are doing a complete website revamp. So we're excited to announce that we are going to be expanding our product range outside of even just leafy greens and the
Okay.
mushrooms
Wow.
that we're currently doing. Continually looking to improve on the products, on the service. Yeah, just seeing also not just how we can help ourselves, but perhaps how we're able to actually help other farmers. And so a couple of exciting things to come. I forgot to mention, we'll be expanding to Cebu as well by the end of the year. So we'll be having, I
Wow.
think, Cebu's first indoor farm.
That's
So a lot to look forward to.
definitely. Yeah. I'm gonna have a new salad order tomorrow. Yeah. Thanks for providing me and thousands of other Filipinos with a better, healthy lifestyle and giving us the produce that we deserve. And also the sizes of it and the amounts and the value that we get for our money with all the crazy things happening in this world. Daria, I'm going to be always a fan of what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was truly exciting to listen to your story, and I hope we all learned something new.
Thanks, Josie. I always do talking to you. Very heartfelt messages. And yeah, hope the audience also gets something out
All
of it.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.